Today, we'll be talking about the impact of memes on quick service restaurant brand perception. My name is Soraya, and I'll be going over the components of the final report and our hypothesis.
My name is Benny, and I'll be going over literature review and data analysis.
My name is Michaela, and I'll be going over the methodology as well as the conclusion.
And my name is Sammy, and I'll be going over data or discussion and recommendations.
So this report explores the relationship between quick service restaurants' brand perception and its online interactions through the use of memes. We chose Gen Z as our population of study based on our secondary research. Gen Z tends to interact highly with memes on social media platforms. Our objectives were that we examined the use of memes by the quick service restaurants' influence on the way Gen Z consumers view the brand. We assessed how memes affect the feelings and attitudes of Gen Z consumers towards the brand. We understand the degree to which memes encourage interaction from Gen Z. And lastly, we examined how engagement with content translate into tangible sales. So our team generated 5 hypotheses. Firstly, posting memes may lead to higher levels of engagement. Secondly, the frequency of memes posted correlates positively with the number of likes, shares, and comments. Third, the memes are more likely to be shared by users than non-meme content. Fourth, QSR memes that reference humor or pop culture references generate higher levels of engagement. And lastly, memes that contain witty or provocative captions elicit more engagement from Gen Z audience.
Literature review. So after doing our secondary research and going over multiple scholarly articles and obtaining information on how QSR brands can use social media to engage with consumers through memes, we created objectives and targets with our key findings. So the objectives and targets that our project is trying to achieve is to find the impact that memes have on brands and how Gen Z reacts to brands that utilize memes to engage with their audience. We are specifically looking to see if brands that use memes impact consumer perception on them, which will be measured through our culture surveys and in-depth interviews.
For our methodology, we'll begin with the research design, where this project originally started as us focusing on how consumers viewed memes that Wendy's posted on social media. And this project evolved into a more broad approach of how quick service restaurants or QSRs use of memes affected brand perception. And as Benny said, we did our primary research methods through Qualtrics surveys and in-person in-depth interviews. Our sampling was in-person interviews were convenient sampling because we interviewed those that were closest to us and most convenient to reach, such as friends and family. And for our online survey, it was a stratified sampling method because we sent these links and QR codes to Discord chats and posted them on social media. So although we know that it was a specific group of people, we can't say exactly who those people were that decided to take the survey. And because of this, our composition of the survey respondents were mostly classmates, friends, and family. And for the tools and techniques, in-person survey was better for complex, thoughtful questions because we had an easier time gauging and explaining to the respondent what the question meant. And the online surveys were better to reach a larger population of our desired sample size, which was Gen Z.
For our data analysis, the steps for our Qualtrics survey, step 1 was creating questions for the survey. Step 2 was us going over the questions and making sure they were related to our research objectives. Step 3 was sending out the survey through links and QR codes. For our in-depth interview, step 1 was creating questions that were related to our objectives. Step 2 was going out and interviewing people through Zoom or in person. For our Cultric survey, we received 131 respondents, with 93 of the respondents being ages 18 to 26, which put them in the Gen Z group. Out of 99 respondents, 85 of them used social media platforms every day. 50 respondents were somewhat or extremely unlikely to share memes created by QSR brands, and 26 respondents were somewhat or extremely likely to share memes that were created by QSR brands. And in our in-depth interviews, most of the respondents that answered the question, do you think that brands that use memes are more relatable to their audience, answered with yes. However, the people that answered with no had reasons like memes being too cringy and they would make brands look unprofessional. So after going through our data from our Cultric survey and in-depth interviews, there were no reason or relation to how users' engagement with brands more because they post memes. But what we did find out is that they do think brands are more relatable if they do use memes.
So moving on to the discussion, let's discuss whether the hypotheses were proved or disproved. So hypothesis A was disproved because Qualtrics data showed that users did not typically engage with the quick service memes or quick service restaurant memes. Hypothesis B was also disproved because the frequency of memes posted did not affect engagement. Hypothesis C was also disproved because only 3% of users were highly likely to share a meme from a QSR account. Hypothesis D was proved. Our in-person interviewees stated that they were more likely to engage if the meme was trendy or funny to them. And finally, hypothesis E was disproved because provocative memes weren't more engaged. However, our in-person interviewees stated that some of the witty, provocative memes were very memorable. Now, moving on to implications. Even though memes didn't generally increase engagement, they were helpful to the brand in other ways, such as making the quick service restaurant seem friendlier and more approachable, and also just generally increasing brand exposure. Some limitations we had was we had no access to the quick service restaurant social media accounts. So we were deprived of like analytics and conversion rates and all these like advanced monitors and just ways to see data. We also only used basic sampling methods because we didn't have time to go more in depth and find a bigger, more specific pool of respondents, which leads us to our last limitation. We didn't really have enough time to conduct an in-depth survey. We only had like 2 months to finalize this project. So given more time, we would have had a more advanced research project. So recommendations to the quick service restaurants. We would say you should continue social media presence because even though the data showed that it didn't increase engagement, it did still increase exposure and it had other positive benefits, such as making the brand more approachable and friendly. And then these brands need to find a way to encourage people to share the quick service restaurant memes. So 3% of people saying that they were very likely to share a meme is very low. So brands need to find a way to make the memes more relatable or funnier or just trendier. That way people are encouraged to share them, make them less embarrassing to share with their friends. And then finally, these brands should focus on marketing on Instagram because Instagram was the mostly used social media platform. Yeah, and just marketing on Instagram would mean more people would see it, more engagement, more exposure. So yeah, just focusing on Instagram would benefit these brands more.
And for our conclusion, I feel like the biggest takeaway that we all feel is that every consumer is different, and that if a brand wants to have more success on social media, it is important to understand their target audience and what their wants and needs are. So understanding that every consumer might see things differently is very important. And thank you for listening to our presentation on how memes impact brand perception.